$3 million sounded like a lot. It's just unimaginable 4 years ago. But today, I'm going to break it down for you on what I did and what I didn't do to acquire real estate assets using short-term rentals in the 4 years from 2019 to 2023. My name is Yiwei, pronounced like eBay, but it's Yiwei. And I own and manage about 27 short-term rentals in Cincinnati, Ohio. We do about 7 figures in booking revenue annually. The reason for this video is I just want to make it known that you can do it too. You don't have to have a lot of money to get started in real estate. I didn't have a lot of money when I started in real estate. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have everything figured out on exactly how to do everything. You can figure it out as it comes. You don't have to have everything perfectly timed, perfectly situated right now. You can start where you are. And the purpose of this video is not to share how great and awesome I am because I have $3 million in assets. It's that you can do it too. You can do it where you are with what you have, working full-time or working part-time, so that you can bring in money to replace your income if you want, or just be another stream of income for yourself, for your family. And you don't have to have everything figured out right now. You can start where you are with what you have, and it's very doable for anybody who wants to build a real estate portfolio, who wants to get started and is serious and committed to doing what it takes to build assets for yourself. I'm going to share the 3 main things I did and also some of the things I didn't do as I built my real estate portfolio over the last 4 years. And I also am going to share the breakdown of the $3 million in assets. So out of the $3 million, all of them are single family homes. And it's about $2.6 million that I own myself and $600,000 that I own with partners, which realistically is $1.2 million in assets, but because we split the equity 50-50, $600,000 is my equity and $600,000 is a partner's. And then also about $210,000 in long-term rentals. So all the other properties are short-term rentals, and then there's a couple long-term rentals in there. First thing I did as I built my real estate portfolio is that I kept my W-2 job and I took full advantage of that. So when I decided in 2019 that I do not want to work corporate for the rest of my life, I made a decision that my corporate job is going to be a way for me to build my real estate portfolio. So I'm going to work full time and I'm going to buy properties. And that was the key in building the real estate portfolio, is owning properties. And the other things I did to take advantage of working full time, which is totally doable. Like, you can totally work full time, work part time. If you have a W-2 job, keep it. Don't quit like right immediately when you're so sick and tired of it. It's like, keep it for as long as you can, because when you purchase properties, it's so much easier to get mortgages with a W-2 income. So I took full advantage of my full-time job by maximizing the amount of mortgages that I could get while using my W-2 income. And also it was really good because I didn't have to worry about doing things to just make money, because I had my W-2 income that covered all my expenses. So I used my W-2 to cover my expenses, maxed out my mortgages as I bought properties, and then I continued to learn and operate and manage short-term rentals at the same time. So I basically had 2 jobs. I was working full-time during the day, And then on the weekends and in the evenings, it was short-term rentals all the time. So while I had my W-2 job, I also tried to figure out other ways I could bring in more income because that is money I can use to invest in more properties. So I wanted to reinvest as much money as I could to buy more properties. My W-2 job was helping me get mortgages, and my other income was helping me put down payment, furnish it, renovate, like anything else I need to get more properties. And for 3 years, I did not pay myself from my short-term rental management business or from any money that was made from the properties. All of that money went back into reinvesting in properties because I knew in 2019 I wanted to quit my corporate job. I didn't want to work there forever. So that was one of the decisions I made is I'm going to do what it takes to not have to keep working. And if that means I'm not paying myself because I'm going to reinvest those money back into properties, back into buying more properties, that's what I did. And I felt like that really accelerated my portfolio growth in those 3 years because the money was coming in. I couldn't use the short-term rental management income to qualify for more loans just because it takes like 2 years, I think, of tax returns for it to count towards your income. But the money is physically there. So that was the money I used to invest in more properties. So I increased my income by managing more properties, by arbitraging one, which I stopped doing that. And then I bought more properties that maximized the cash flow and revenue. So at the time, I was beginning to see trends in which properties were bringing in more money, which properties were bringing in okay money. And based on that, I made the decision to invest in bigger homes because it was during COVID and I also had a few homes that were doing super well and they were just a lot bigger. And that's kind of the strategy I still do now is I like to look for homes that are bigger and they have more margin. So if there are homes that bring in more revenue, but it still takes the same amount of work managing a 1-bedroom condo versus a 4-bedroom house, then I would prefer to go with a bigger house that can generate more revenue. And there are going to be a little bit more expenses, but overall, the profit margin is just a lot higher. The second thing I did was something I was kind of forced to learn because after 3 or 4 houses, I basically maxed out my debt to income ratio. I could not buy any more homes with my W-2 income. And because it's been less than 2 years of tax returns, I couldn't really use my property management income as additional qualifier either. So I had to figure out a different way for me to purchase homes because I didn't want to just stop purchasing homes because my debt to income ratio was maxed out. And it took a lot of research and talking to different lenders to figure out what to try. So I just tried a lot of different things and I'm going to share the different loans I got. And just a disclaimer, I am not a lawyer, accountant, or financial advisor. I'm just sharing everything as I understand it and my experiences in these loans. So I had 4 in W-2 conventional loan. And then I started getting DSCR loans. So DSCR loan stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. What I really liked about this is that it doesn't go off your personal credit. The loan is based off of the income, the rental income that this property can produce. And then the lender underwrites it based off of the expenses of that property only. So it comes up with some ratio. So like some lender have different ratio requirements. The typical is probably like a 1.2. That means the rental income over the total expenses, including taxes and insurance, have to be 1.2. So 20% more of income than the expenses. And then the other good thing about this loan was that I could close it in an LLC. So I didn't have to close in my personal name and then transfer into LLC. It is just in the LLC to begin with, and the mortgage is in the LLC's name. And you still have to personally guarantee this loan, but it will not show up on your personal credit. So for me, that was a huge benefit because I could not use my personal credit to qualify for any more loans. So this was the loan I used for a lot of our partnership homes and some of the homes that we purchased for long-term rentals and short-term rentals. The one negative thing about the DSCR loans is that there may be a prepayment penalty. And depending on the loan and the lender, they should tell you how long that is. It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years. So that basically just means you can't really refinance in that amount of time without paying a fee. I don't know what the penalty may be for your specific loan, so that's something to check before you sign. And the other thing about the DSCR loan is that the rates are definitely a lot higher. So at the time in 2021, everybody was paying like 3.5% or maybe even less than 3.5%. And all my loans were like 4.5, 4.75. And I was like, this is crazy. This is so freaking high. But now that I look back, I'm like, okay, they are really low rates now compared to now, which is like a homeowner loan is like 7.5%. So the DSCR loans are always like a point or a point and a half more than the conventional interest rates from my experience. And then the third type of financing that I started doing was creative financing. And that is where the owner financed a property and became the bank. So instead of getting a loan from a bank, I am paying the owner payments every single month, and they own the property until everything is paid off, just like what the bank does. So the short-term rentals, I've only done one like that. The other two are long-term rentals. So an example of one that I did with the short-term rental is we gave the owner a down payment, and then every single month we give payments, basically make payments to them, just like a mortgage, except it's going to the owner instead of a bank. And what is really great about the creative financing is you get to bypass the bank completely. It's like the best thing ever, and I would do it all the time if owners are really open to it. The thing is, not a lot of owners are, and especially if there's a realtor or an agent involved, it's a lot easier to go directly to the owner because of the trust thing. Like, owners have to trust you as a person that you're going to make payments, and it's easier to do that when you have a relationship with the owner. But you can always make those offers even if there are houses on the market. So most of the times these homes were off the market, or the owner was looking to rent or sell, but they couldn't get what they wanted. And that was one of the offers we made. So those are the different ways I finance my properties after maximizing my debt to income ratio. If I had to do it again now, today, when I'm getting loans as I'm buying more homes, I am leaning more towards a commercial loan, which I don't have experience with yet, but based on my discussions with the lender, that's something I would like to do next because the rates are still lower than a conventional loan, but you do have a 20-year amortization. You are able to close it in an LLC, but they will need to see all your financial documentation. So that is still TBD, but that is the option I'm probably going to take in this year, 2024, and see how that compares with the DSCR. I'm kind of not into DSCR at this point because at 8 or 9% is going to be pretty hard to cash flow unless you get a really, really, really good price. So I thought DSCR was really great when rates were lower, but now that they're higher, I'm leaning more towards creative financing if possible. I would do that all day long, or I would look into one of the commercial loans. So just one last note on the commercial loan is sometimes they are adjustable rate mortgages. So the rates might adjust in like 5 years or 7 years depending on the loan. But the one I was looking at is a 20-year fixed rate. The one thing about that is it does have a 10-year balloon, which means the loan ends in 10 years. So I'm either have to refinance or do something else with it. So that is just something to take into consideration. The third thing I did was build systems that gave the consistency of a great product. And in short-term rentals, a great product is a great home that guests love and want to come back to all the time. And this was so important to me because that's how I was able to get such high revenue for my properties. And a high revenue is more cash flow for me because my expenses are going to be the same. And what was really important about the systems is that now I can sustain that time after time. And even as I add more properties, that I'm not going to be overwhelmed or burnt out because I can't do everything myself or I'm just running around all the time now. So having that system was what really pushed me to scale and have multiple properties, but also continually delivering the great guest experience to the guests so that they want to continue to stay at my homes. If there was not a great product and I couldn't get guests to stay, then I wouldn't have any money to buy more properties. So I think first and foremost, my whole belief in having a great product was the foundation for being able to make more money and use that money to buy more assets. And just while we're on this topic of having a great product, if you are looking to start a short-term rental in 2024, I have a guide on the top 5 amenities that every short-term rental needs to have to be really bring in the revenue in 2024. And I have that in the link below, so you can download that for free. And here are the things I did not do as I built my real estate portfolio. So the first one I did not do is arbitrage properties. Arbitrage is where you rent a property from a property owner or a property manager and you take that property to do short-term rentals with. So you're paying long-term rental rates and then you are making short-term rental revenue. So you're making that difference between a long-term rental and a short-term rental. So if your rent is $1,800, but every month you can make $3,200 on this home as a short-term rental, then you're making that difference. And I actually did one when I first started because I want to try everything. So I started doing arbitrage because it was like such low money to get in. Like you don't have to put down payment down to buy a house. You can try it out and see how this works. This property works as a short-term rental. And what I've learned is that Arbitrage is not owning assets. You're getting cash flow every single month. You can reinvest that cash flow. But unless you're reinvesting that cash flow in assets, in real estate properties itself, is not really helping you long term. And that's really the theme of everything I do now, is like a long-term goal, a long-term vision of what am I going to do to build assets, to build income over the long term that is going to help me in the future. So I believe you can make money arbitraging if you pick the right properties and you deliver the right guest experience. And if guests want to stay in those homes, they will stay. But at the end of the day, you're creating just a stream of income for yourself. You are only doing a job, because if that stops, if that income stops coming in, you have no assets to show for it. You're paying down other people's mortgages, you're paying down other people's expenses. You're not doing anything to help your own portfolio, to help your own assets. So I don't do arbitrage anymore, and I don't recommend anybody to do arbitrage if your goal is to build a real estate portfolio, to build assets. So you want to own the assets, you want to buy more assets, and not just create a stream of income for yourself. The second thing I did not do is sell my properties. So I don't buy properties with the intent to sell them in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I buy properties with the intent that I am going to keep this for the next 30 years, 50 years. Like, I do not want to sell. So once I buy a property, I am not parting with it at all. And this really changed the criteria that I bought property. So I'm not buying something to flip it. So I want to buy something I want to hold on to for the next 30 years. So when I look for property, I'm looking for a really solid house, a really solid foundation. It's okay if I have to do work to it. I'm willing to invest in that property. I'm willing to update it and renovate it, because I know that I'm going to be keeping this for the long term. So I'm not looking to use the cheapest quality work out there, the cheapest material there is, or I'm willing to do work that maybe some flippers or rehabbers won't do, because that's not going to really increase the value of the home at that time. So this is super important to me, and it really translated into my revenue for short-term rentals too, because the guests saw that we took care of the homes. Like, the homes were done right. The finishes were done right. We used great contractors with really great quality and the finishes, because when I touch something, I don't want to touch it again. I don't want to have to go in there and fix the same thing 5 times, when I would rather just do it once and have it be right. So that changed the way I evaluated properties. That changed the way I bought properties, locations of where properties are, what kind of work I needed to do, the investment. It was that long-term time horizon. And it really goes back to one of my favorite quotes, and that is, rich people sell, wealthy people hold. I heard that from Alex Hormozy, and I was like, this applies so much to real estate, because real estate is really the true epitome of the value of compounding, the time. The longer something takes, the more you hold it, the more value it will have, because the appreciation, the house will go up in value, because the rent revenue. So even with a long-term rental, rents are going to continue to go up. People are not paying the same amount in rent 10 years ago than they are now. Rent has gone up in the last 10 years. Meanwhile, your mortgage is staying the same if you have a 30-year fixed loan. It's staying the same. Your expenses are basically the same, maybe except for some minor fluctuations in insurance and property taxes, but pretty generally your expenses are staying the same. So with everything else appreciating and your expenses staying mostly flat, that's how you're building the wealth. Because in 20, 30 years from now, when that house is paid off, by the way, not with your money, with the rental income that is coming in, and you own that property outright, that is how you build long-term wealth. And that is the whole reason why I continue to do what I do now that I left my job actually 2 years ago. In 2022, January of 2022 was my last month working corporately. But ever since then, I still continue to invest in real estate because I know this is how I want to build more assets, how I want to build more income. And if someday, somehow, I don't want to do short-term rentals anymore, those properties will still make money as long-term rentals. They will still generate money because in 10, 20 years from now, rent would have gone up and the property would have appreciated. And it's just so much more that you can do when you have assets. And by the time I was able to quit my full-time job and just do real estate full-time, I'm just like, okay, now that I've reached my first goal, I want to continue to invest in real estate because I know that I am building a long-term portfolio, a long-term goal for myself. This is a way I can make money and not have to trade time for dollars, basically, every single day, which is what I felt like I was doing in my full-time job. I had to use my time to get money. But with real estate, it's such a good way to invest and have money passively if you want to. If you have a property manager or a short-term rental manager, it's completely passive to you. And that was something that I just wanted to continue to do even after I left my full-time job and after I made enough money to replace my income. So $3 million sounds intimidating and it sounds wild back then to me. But now it's like, it's not a number. It's just something I do now. It's not like some arbitrary number I want to hit. Like I want to hit $10 million. I want to hit 100 doors. I want to hit so many things. It just wasn't the goal anymore. It's more like enjoying what I do and being able to continue to invest because now I've done it enough to know how I can get more properties. How can I do more of my short-term rentals? How can I create more homes that gets love? And I think at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. So if you want to get started in real estate in 2024, this is a great year to start, regardless of what the interest rates are doing, regardless of what the housing market is doing. There are still properties out there that is going to generate revenue, that's still going to generate cash flow, and you just have to start. Everybody starts from zero. Everybody starts from something. Don't let numbers intimidate you, but also don't expect to make $10,000 tomorrow. It's a long-term game, but if you're patient enough, you will get there. You will be able to make more than $10,000 a month. You'll be able to make as much as you are patiently going to set yourself up for success in the future. If you're interested in getting started in short-term rentals, I have a masterclass on teaching you how to evaluate short-term rentals so that you get the most profit from that home from the beginning. So how to evaluate short-term rentals, how do you know this is going to be a right property for a short-term rental? I have a link below if you want to check out that masterclass.